I still got to change that opening. I keep forgetting. Welcome, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Morning Photography Show. Today, we're going to be doing some of what we did last time, different images, different workflows. But for those of you who are new, welcome to Adobe Live. Welcome to the Morning Photography Show. This is my chance to talk more photography than editing, although we will be doing some editing today. And this is kind of just a mix up, just a switch up, just a kind of try new things. So kind of deviating a little bit from the photography masterclass, talking more about photography. So I do this show and I still do the masterclass at least a couple times a month now. And welcome to a Monday. And I know it's morning somewhere, it's afternoon somewhere, it's evening somewhere. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. So with that said, I see some folks chiming in to YouTube already. I see some folks, of course, on Behance. For the person on YouTube, he says he's from Ghana, and how can I get the Photoshop Beta? You get the Photoshop Beta the way we all do. So in your Creative Cloud app, there's a section called Beta when you look under the applications, and you go there and you'll be able to install the Photoshop Beta. So that's how we get it. That's how everyone gets it. Even employees get it that way. All right, Barry Jackson, hello from YouTube, and Victoria, I see you over there on Behance, along with General Kenobi, Oliver, Frank. Hopefully I'm not butchering your name. It's one of the two, I'm sure. Steve, and welcome, and let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be doing today. So when I did the first episode of the Morning Photography Show, one of the things that stood out that people commented more than anything else, they liked having the behind the scenes of the New York shots and just talking about the setup. So they liked that part of it. So I said, and this Monday kind of hit me off guard. I just hadn't looked and saw, oh, you got a show, in a few days. So I was thinking, okay, what can I do in this show? We're definitely going to do that segment, and we're just obviously we're going to use different shots in New York. And I'm going to talk about not only how I got the shot, but hopefully challenge you to go do some of the things I just did in this particular shoot. And also we'll do some of the editing, some of the post-processing to how I got the final shot. Let's put it that way. So with that said, hey, Sean Lee, what's up? What's up, Sean Lee in Detroit? Welcome. Darren Hood, good morning. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to switch over to my computer and you will see the kind of shots I'm talking about. They're not my usual. So back in November last year, the true story, I was stopped at a convenience store or basically some store. I walked in, and as I was talking to the person at the counter, I hear this low flying jet go by, and I was like, "What the because it was so low." I was like, "What the heck is that?" And she says, "Like I'm from another planet. It's an air show." And I'm like, they're rehearsing, they're practicing. And I said, "There's an air show this weekend?" Yeah. And this was how I got her back. She said, "Haven't you heard it on the radio?" And I said, "Radio, what's that?" So we had fun. Anyway, so I had no idea there was an air show that close to me. And it was going to be happening all weekend. I think this was on a Friday, so I had Saturday to get there, or it was happening on Saturday. I was there on the store on Saturday. I think I had Sunday was the last day. And I said, I've always wanted to shoot an air show. I even bought a lens to shoot an air show that I'd never used to shoot an air show. And I'm scared because I've never shot an air show. And the only thing to be scared of is that you won't get a shot. You won't get anything good. Literally, that's the only thing that can go wrong. And I said, that's it. I'm doing it. I'm going. So that day, I came home. I bought my ticket online. And I geared up. I went and looked at some things, best practices and things to do. And I made sure I had all the right stuff for my camera and made sure I had all the right settings ready to go. And I went to the air show. So let me show you, and I'm in a collection right now in Lightroom Classic. That's some of my favorite shots. And so let me just quickly go through those, and then we'll get into the particulars of the behind the scenes and the particulars of the shots. So this is the air show. I'm lining up, and notice it says Flightline Club VIP. So what I learned from years and years of going to events concerts, shows, anything where something's performing in front of you, if you don't get good seats, you're not going to necessarily get good shots. If you get good seats, you got a better chance of getting good shots. So I bought the top VIP ticket so that I could get closer access. I need all the help I can get being my first air show. So being closer will help. That's the way I figured it. So for the VIP, and it's just, you just pay more. So you get this tent, they have food, so forth and so on before everything starts. And if you look past the people in the tent, you see the Blue Angels jets literally right there. You can almost reach out and touch them. They're that close. So there's no closer way to get to be up close to the planes than to pay for better seating to be up close to the planes. So that was the show. This was back in November 5th through 6th. So I guess I was there on the 6th, the last day. And that's me. And that's me with the camera and the lens. And I didn't have my new camera yet. It didn't exist. I have a Z8 now. And so this is my Z6 II. So Nikon Z6 II with a Tamron 150 to 600 millimeter lens, all the way fully extended, of course, just to show it off. That lens, the reason I got it, knowing that one day I might shoot an air show, is because, or I wanted to shoot an air show, and if I have the lens, that'll kind of force me to go do it because I paid for the lens. That lens, the beauty of it is that it's relatively low cost. You think a big lens like that is going to be several $1,000s. And usually if you buy them from the company, the manufacturer like Canon, Nikon, whatever, they will be several $1,000s. But this lens, I believe, is going for right around $900 these days. I just sold it and I got a lot less than that for it. But anyway, I think when I bought it, it might have been $1,100, $1,200, and now you could probably get it for $1,000 or less. And you can definitely get it used for $1,000 or less because I just sold one. All right, so 150 millimeter to 600 millimeter, I got the distance. I got what I need to be able to take the shots. All right, so the show starts off with, you know, this paratrooper coming in, flag and parachuting in. And I'm like, oh, click, click, click. I don't know what I'm doing yet, so I'm just shooting. Then when the show starts, and I'm not like showing you every single shot, I'm just kind of showing you some of my favorites that I picked. They usually start with the prop planes before they start with the jets. So the prop planes are usually come out first. They do their shows, they do all the smoke, they do their low flying, all that. That usually happens first. And then you start to see the jets and the Blue Angels and the Warthogs and all the other planes that they have. So this gave me some time to warm up because what I was really there for were the jets. I'm going to talk about the shots and what it takes to get some of these settings and all, but this gave me some time to practice. So you basically leave the tent, walk up to the fence, and just start shooting, and you're there with 100 other people doing the exact same thing. Now, I will tell you, remember when I said, well, what could go wrong? Well, the biggest disappointment that you can have coming from a show like this is you took hundreds or thousands, usually thousands of frames, and they're all out of focus, or they're not sharp, or they're not this, or they're not. In other words, they can't be salvaged. In other words, they're so bad that no amount of post-processing is going to make them good. So you're waiting with bated breath when you get to your computer to start going through them and really zooming in and looking at them big to make sure that they are in fact in focus. Because that is the biggest thing that can go wrong, is that they're just blurry. They're just, you know, you're not going to use them in that case. So I lucked up. I did get some shots, and the ones on the ground are a lot easier. They're not moving or not moving fast. Those are a lot easier to get in focus. And the ones in the air, they're flying low in front of you. Usually they're flying a little slower sometimes. So those are a lot easier to get in focus as well. And so I got some shots. I got some that actually made it into my portfolio and all. These were the Blue Angels parked literally right in front of me. So I didn't even, I could have shot this with anything. I could have shot it with my phone. It was that close. And one of the things I learned, remember I said I researched some of the best practices? is that when you're and I'll talk about all the modes and all that in a minute. When you're photographing a prop plane, what you want to do is you want to have that propeller have some blur. Because if you shoot it with a shutter speed that's too fast, it'll freeze it. And it'll just look like the prop is just like the plane is just floating there in midair and that's not spinning. Just because you have such a fast shutter speed, you froze it and it's not spinning, so it doesn't look as realistic. So shooting jets is one setting, shooting prop planes or propeller planes is another setting, because you always want that blur of the propeller. But that's even trickier because you want the blur of the propeller, you don't want the blur of the plane. So just, you have to, do that. So I love some of these behind the scenes shots, the pilots or the planes, the cockpits, all of that. And this is them, they do a whole performance getting in. So I got some of that too. And I could probably read his name if I zoom in, because again, having access. So this is coming up to one of my favorite shots where they always have, and I forget the official title of the person helping them out and getting them ready. But if you're a Navy person or a flight person, you'll know the title of that guy on the wing. But anyway, this was just a random shot, and it's my favorite. It's one of my favorites on the ground, because it was just that moment of we're a team. Like this is something you would see on a poster. Like, we're just fist bumping. This is the shot that really, like, oh my God, I can't believe I got that. Like, I shot like, I don't know how many frames to get it, but I was like, da, 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 really fast just to make sure I got it. And again, that just happened in front of me. I didn't know that was going to happen. So you got to always be prepared. And that's another thing with the air show, I will say. You're not pausing. Like, you are always on. And what I mean by that, unless you've seen the show before, unless you know what's going to happen, you don't know what's going to happen. So they're making announcements. They're saying, oh, so-and-so is about to fly over, or so-and-so is coming in, or they're going to do this maneuver or whatever. But unless you've seen it before, you don't know exactly where in the sky it's going to take place. You have an idea, you're aiming in that direction, but you don't know where. So you have to always be prepared. So again, just this was an example of, had I not been shooting the whole time and ready to get a shot, I'd have missed this, because I didn't know it was going to happen, and it was completely unexpected. All right, so then, you'll get a lot of them taxiing, and of course now I'm getting to the jet shots, and these are some of my favorites because this is kind of what I went there to shoot. And this is also one of my favorites. We'll get into the behind the scenes of this one as well. And just like, I was having a ball. So when I got home, I was happy. Now, I took probably, I don't know, 3,000 frames that day. Like 3,000 images came into Lightroom Classic when I got home. And 1,000 of them immediately got deleted. Like, I went through each one, and like, I was, oh, that's out of focus, delete. Oh, that's, that one's whatever, delete. Oh, I missed the angle I wanted, delete. Like, there were just 1,000 that were immediately going in the trash. Because you got to make sure that even though you shot 3,000 frames, if you're not going to ever use it because something's wrong with it, there's no reason to hang on to that data. There's no reason to hang on to that file. And I don't mean that, it could be fixed if I use the right software or use the right technique. I mean, these are shots that they're just never going to be right. So just get rid of those right off the bat, because what that will leave you with is the ones you really like, the ones that are usable, the ones that are good. All right, so that's the end of the favorites. And I still have 2,100 shots in the main folder. So we're going to get into some of those, and again, get into some of the behind the scenes and how to fix. So let's go over a couple settings first, since this is a photography show. Let's go into what it takes to shoot the propeller planes versus the jets. And it's really two different settings. Now, first and foremost, I'm a studio shooter mostly. I shoot portraits in studio. And I shoot travel, like, travel scenes, like nice travel shots. So I'm used to working in one of two modes. I'm used to working in manual when I'm in the studio, where I'm controlling the light, controlling everything, because I can. It's easy. And I'm used to shooting an aperture priority when I'm walking and on the go. So let's think of the difference of you're stationary, you're controlling the subject, you're controlling the scene, you're setting everything. Like you can shoot it again if you don't get it right. I can shoot manual and keep making adjustments until I get it the way I want, because I'm in complete control of the setup. I'm in complete control of the lighting. But when I'm walking around, like a photo walk or a travel scene, I may not have time to dial it in. I may only get one click. So I'm usually on aperture priority, where I'm only setting the f-stop and the camera setting the shutter speed. That's what aperture priority does. So I'm usually between one of those two modes. When it comes to an air show, car show, not show, but racing, any horses, anything moving fast, anything moving, you're not going to be in either one of those. You're not going to, well, I take that back. You could be a manual if that's the way you like to roll, but you're usually going to be a shutter priority. So aperture priority, manual, shutter priority. What's the difference? In aperture priority, you just set your f-stop and the camera will set the appropriate shutter speed based on the available light. In manual, you're setting both the shutter speed and the aperture or f-stop. So you're saying, oh, I want the shutter speed to be this fast or this slow. I want the f-stop to be this to keep the background in focus or out of focus. You're doing all that yourself. Shutter priority, you're setting a shutter speed and the camera's picking the aperture. So it's the opposite of aperture priority. And the reason you're picking a shutter speed is because that's the most important thing. You're either freezing the action or you're letting a little bit of blur come in, like on the props. So you're controlling that aspect and the camera controls the rest. Now, could you do it in manual? Yeah, absolutely. People do it. I'm sure do it in manual every single day. But then you're asking for more work, because unless you're really, really good at knowing what to dial in, you are setting yourself up for more work and possibly missed shots. So Nicola's asking a great question. What about ISO setting? Because if you're setting the shutter speed and it's going to adjust the aperture depending on, is it cloudy? Is it shady? Is it whatever? What's your ISO setting? Because normally in studio, I'd have it on 100. But when I'm walking around on aperture priority, I have it set to auto ISO because I don't know what's going to happen with the lighting depending on what I aim at and what I shoot. Same thing with the air show. I had it on auto ISO because, again, that was one less thing I wanted to have to worry about. Now, there will be people that will argue with me, argue with you on all of what I just said. And it's okay. At the end of the day, if you're arguing, that means you have a better way for you to do it. Keep doing it your way for you. I'm talking about to the people that don't have a way yet and they want to know. So somebody's going to say, I shoot manual. I know what I'm doing. I know auto anything. I'm going to do it all. Great. Go do you. What I'm saying to people that may hear that, because that's old school thinking, I'm a professional. I should shoot manual. I should do it all myself. We spend thousands of dollars every year on camera gear. Every time a new body comes out, we want it or we get it, one of the two. And eventually you upgrade. And the reason you usually upgrade is because there was something in that newer camera that has something that your older camera didn't have. A better processor, better sensor, better this, better autofocus, better this. And when you're saying, I'm just going to shoot manual and turn all that off, then why are you buying a new camera? Because what you're saying is, I don't want the benefit of what my camera can do. I'm going to do it myself. And that's fine if that's what you like. But I bought a camera, a newer camera, because it had newer features and newer technologies to help me get the shot. So if you feel that's not enough, you should do it all yourself. Do it all yourself. I'm going to let the camera do as much of the work and heavy lifting as I can. Because then I can concentrate on the other stuff, the creative stuff, the composition, the stuff that the camera doesn't do automatically. That makes sense? So Whichever one you are, you do that. Okay, so now that we got that speech out of the way, let's go into the settings here. And so if I look at this particular shot, let me look at the settings. So the ISO was 100 for this. So again, it did the right thing because it was a nice, beautiful, bright day. And the shutter speed on this one is going to be 1/125th of a second. And normally for the propeller planes, I target it normally. And I was practicing on this, so I probably hadn't got to my main setting yet. Let me go to, or maybe I had, I don't know. See which one's which. I'll show you one with my main setting. These are all like 1/100th, 1/200th, 1/250th. And that's where I was kind of trying to stay. I'm just looking at these and see if I can find the one I'm looking for here. That's 1/125th. Here we go. Yeah, okay, so these are 1/250th. And with the ones that are 1/250th, you get that nice blur. And again, you have to worry that you may not get that in focus, so you may want to drop it down a little bit if that's a concern. But anyway, I never went over that. Like that was the fastest I went with, was 1/250th of a second. And again, at ISO 100 or auto ISO, if I thought that was going to be too dark. All right, so what did I do for the jets? Well, the jets are flying a lot faster and there's no propeller blur to worry about. And you definitely want to keep those in focus. So you want to freeze the action as best you can. Those are a big difference. Those were shot at 1/1000th of a second. So 1/125th to 250th for the props, jumping all the way up to 1,000th of a second for the jets because I want to freeze them as best I can. Now you can go faster. I mean, your camera can shoot as fast as you want. But that was basically what, and that one ended up being ISO 110. So auto kept it down low and did it at 110. And that one, again, I can see that everything's kind of in focus. That one did the right thing because I had the shutter speed fast enough to freeze the action as they fly by. And literally, by the way, this is how an air show works. You see the plane coming, and and by the way, my Nikon Z6 II doesn't have any kind of automatic tracking for planes. Like it doesn't have that mode. Some newer cameras, like my new camera, has a mode for planes. So you just set it on that mode and it automatically locks onto the plane and keeps it in the focus the whole time. Great. I don't have to do that manually. I know if you're a manual person, you probably say, I don't use that. I just do it manually. Good for you. Anyway, so you're going to see the plane coming in and you're going to lock your continuous focus on, by the way. Well, that's another setting. You're going to set it for continuous focus. And you're going to press the shutter half down till it locks on. And then you're just going to you're going to have it on, whatever the shutter thing is called that keeps shooting, continuous shutter. You're going to then just shoot it as it goes by. And you're going to hope you got it. Because remember I said the lens was 150 to 600? Well, you're also zooming because when it's far out, you're zooming in on it. And as it gets closer, it's closer. So you can't be zoomed in on it. So you're also adjusting your zoom while you're tracking it as it goes by and shooting and hope you get the shot. So those are the kinds of things that went into the settings. I did shoot in RAW. The old adage of, your camera's not fast enough to shoot in RAW, so therefore you need to shoot in JPEG when it's something fast moving so you can get more frames as you're doing continuous shutter. A lot of that's gone away with, especially with the newer mirrorless cameras. They're fast enough now to shoot multiple frames really quickly in RAW. So that's one of those things that again, I ask that question for people that shoot air shows all the time. Should I shoot in JPEG? They're like, no, we shoot in RAW. And because you're going to have more data to work with and more image, best possible quality image from your shutter, or from your camera sensor to work with when you shoot in RAW. So no automatic processing with a JPEG. These are all RAW shots, all shot continuous, high speed, auto ISO, shutter priority, And that's what I got. All right, so now let's go in and let's talk about some of the what went into the post process, because you're seeing all of these are finished. So like you're seeing the finished shots. Now let's go look at some of the ones that before they looked like they look now. So I'm going to go into this one. I just have it selected, and in that way when I go to the main folder where all the shots in, it will still be selected. All right, so there it is. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a virtual copy because I don't want to screw up my edit. So I'm going to make a virtual copy. And when I make a virtual copy in Lightroom Classic, it's going to make it exactly the way it was. But now I'm going to go into the develop and reset it. That's what I originally started with. So it was, I cropped to zoom in because to me it was just too far away. Now that's not bad for a reset. That the only thing really that on that particular shot was the cropping that didn't look as good. But now, so here's what you want to do. If you're going to crop into a shot, and let me say this before we actually do the crop. I'm one of the people that says, you know, I don't need 1,000,000 megapixels. Like I don't need a better camera just because it has more megapixels. Except there's one exception to that rule when you want to do this. Because if you're starting out with more megapixels, like this camera is a 24 megapixel camera, my new one's 48. Had I shot this with my newer camera, my 48 megapixel camera, I'd have more data when I crop it. The image would still be large. So normally I don't care for portraits. 24 megapixels is perfect for portraits. I don't need anything bigger than that. But if you're shooting something far away that you're going to crop into, then you want more megapixels if you got them. So that would be an advantage to a bigger, higher megapixel camera for shooting air shows for this reason. Okay, but the file is going to be bigger, and depending on the camera, you may not get as many and like, you know, while you're holding the shutter down. So those are all considerations. All right, so I went into the crop tool. Oh, whoa, back up. Let's get out of there. Oh, hang on, undo. Let's do what I normally do first. So I was about to jump into the crop. So I didn't crop it yet. I went in and started making my adjustments. So I set the, I don't remember which profile I used. I probably used Vivid because it's not really a landscape. It's definitely not a portrait. And I kind of want it to be vivid. So I might have shot Vivid. I might have shot landscape, depending on which, or I might have switched to landscape, whichever one that I wanted. I probably use landscape, but now that I'm looking at Vivid, I kind of like Vivid better. And Vivid, all this profile is doing, it's a raw profile. It's basically just setting the foundation for your image. So I did that. Then I always do the exact same thing. Next button I hit is auto. Auto tone. Now, auto tone, in this case, I don't like some of the settings. In most cases, I don't like some of the settings, but some I do like. So this way I only have to change the ones I don't like. It made it too dark. So I'm gonna go ahead and just reset the exposure back to what it was on. So I just reset the exposure with a double click back to 0. Everything else I'm okay with. So normally when it does auto tone and I'm doing people, it adjusts the vibrance and saturation. I usually reset those back to 0, but in this case, I don't care. It's a jet. It can be more vibrant. It can be more saturated. Now I would get into the crop before I do any more detail work because I want to be able to see it on the actual plane. So when you're going to use your crop tool, oh, sorry. I always make that mistake now because of the keyboard shortcuts different. When you're, so whenever you see me do that, I hit C and C in Lightroom Classic is compare. So it takes the two shots and compares them side by side. C in Lightroom Cloud is crop. So I'm so used to hitting C over there, and C makes sense, that I'm not used to hitting the letter R anymore for crop in Lightroom Classic. Anyway, back to our story. So when you're cropping, you also want to keep composition into your thought process. Now we have this nice jet stream coming out of the back of it. I don't want to lose any of that. So I'm not going to crop this way because I like that. I like that jet. I like the cloud, or that smoke. I like the cloud as well. So I'm going to come in from the other direction. The other thing you don't want to do in an action shot like this is you don't want to come in too close, because you want to leave enough room for the thing you're cropping it's moving this or it's moving this way. I want it to have enough space or sky to move, to continue to fly. So I would never crop that tight on something that's moving that way. So just a composition thing. So let's undo that. So what I would do, and by the way, you can still decide whether or not you want to lock the aspect ratio or you want to set it to a specific aspect ratio. So I didn't print any of these. If I were going to print it, I might go ahead and switch to an 8x10 or a standard aspect ratio for printing. That way I don't have to worry about it when I print it, and I'm just cropping off extra sky anyway. It doesn't really matter. So I might go ahead and constrain it to that 4x5, 8x10. Now, of course, that constrained it on the sides. I'm still going to move it over so I don't lose any of that jet stream. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up this way. And that's about all I'm going to do. So I'm basically putting it in a better position in the sky, closer to us so we can see it. Then I hit the letter R to get out of crop. Now, I can't think of a situation when I wouldn't do this. I want this image to be as sharp as possible. So you start in camera, make it as in focus as possible, but then I haven't met a shot yet that couldn't stand to be sharpened in post as well. So, people all say, "Why? How'd you get your images so sharp?" And the answer is I sharpen them. So that's always the case. Now, Lightroom's sharpen is good. Texture is great. Clarity is good too. But I'll be honest. If I want it to be as sharp as possible, I use a third-party plugin. Yep, I said it. I use Topaz AI Sharpen, because it just does a better sharpening job than the built-in sharpening. There's nothing wrong with the built-in sharpening. It's like you're starting with good, pretty good, but you want better. So that's Topaz. So I can definitely use the sharpening here and get the results I want, or get good results, I should say. But if I want to take it to the next level, go check out Topaz, the company. They make all kinds of AI sharpening and photo tools and so forth and so on. So I think they make a new one now, AI Photo, that comprises all the sharpening and other features that they had separate plugins for. But AI Sharpen is what I would take this over to if I really want it to be sharp as possible. We're going to stick in Lightroom for now, and let's see what we can do here. So I zoomed into it, and again, it's definitely in focus. It looks pretty sharp as is. And if I go down to the detail, there's some sharpening that automatically gets applied to your raw file. So it's already set to 40. That's the default that you get just by opening the raw file. You don't have to do anything else. Lightroom's automatically going to say, you lost some sharpening from the camera to Lightroom. We're going to put it back by changing the sharpen automatically to 40. All right. If you want to go higher, I normally wouldn't do this on people, but I could definitely do it on objects like a plane. Now, if I take it too far, and I will tell you, one of the main things you need to worry about and be concerned about when you're making any adjustments to an object like this is if you overdo it, there will be a halo around the object. You'll see like a white line around the object or whatever color. You can start to see a little bit of it here, but that's not, I'm zoomed in, so that's not something you would ever notice zoomed out. Zoomed out is fine. But when you start to see that halo, you know you've gone too far. So if I take the sharpening all the way over, well, first of all, that's, I don't necessarily get a halo, but I'm destroying the sky. So what might I do instead? Let's undo it. Let's go back out. Let's go into masking. And, oh, is there a mask already there? There's a mask already there. So I would, I thought I reset it. Maybe it didn't get rid of the mask, but let's go ahead and delete it anyway. I'm going to delete this, and let's go ahead, and now we're in masking. We're going to say select subject. So now that will create a mask automatically. I'm just going to rename it plane so we know what it is. All right, so now we got a mask for the plane. Now if I do that extreme sharpening, it's not going to touch the sky. I'm just working on the plane. The sky is fine the way it is. All right, so now if I were to go ahead and zoom in, and I were to go ahead and go to sharpen, see, if I drag it all the way over, nothing happens to the sky. Don't drag it all the way over because you are destroying other pixels, like the US is starting to go now. And versus if I go the other way, you can start to see it affecting the US. So just a little bit of sharpening, a little bit more than you had before. So I took it to like 20. That's probably still too much, but just now it's only happening to the plane. What you might also do is in lieu of so much sharpening, maybe pull the sharpening back a little bit more, because texture is way more forgiving. So if I bump up the texture, again, that's low texture, that's higher texture, you have more room to play with texture and clarity than you do sharpening, because sharpening is going to get bad pretty quickly if you go too far. Texture and clarity have a little bit more room to play. What's the difference between texture and clarity? I get that question all the time. So texture is literally just the texture. Like, it's not going to affect anything else. It's going to make the texture sharper or less sharp. Clarity is texture plus shadows and highlights. So for example, if I reset texture back to 0, and I now just do clarity, look at the plane get darker or lighter. So it's not just affecting the texture, it's also affecting the shadows and highlights. So if you don't want that, because sometimes it looks good, in this case it doesn't. If you don't want that, stick to texture. If you say, oh, I want that too, then just use clarity because it's going to do both. All right, so I'm just going to bump up the texture a little bit more. All right, now if I zoom back out, I might also be able to do some more things. Since I got the plane masked by itself, I might be able to go a little bit lighter on the plane. Look at that. I'm going to bring out way more detail just by bumping up the exposure just on the plane. Not the sky looks fine. The sky is perfect the way it is. Mother Nature did a great job that day. I don't need to touch the sky. I just want to touch the plane, make sure the plane looks good. All right, so I just, again, that's just going from that to that. Just bringing it out a little bit more. And if we zoom in, let's grab our zoom tool. Look at that. And again, before and after. So don't be afraid to go in and do things to your jet, like just to make it even better than it was out of the camera. All right, and that's pretty much it for that shot. Like I can't think of anything else I would do. So basically all we did was crop, we masked it, we sharpened it, texture or clarity, or texture, clarity, or sharpen, or both, sharpen and texture. And then we just bump up the exposure a little bit. Now, again, I could go in and say, well, let me see what I would get if I increase the saturation a little bit more. And yeah, it's not making a big enough difference for me to worry about. That's about it. So that's that shot. That's what I would do. So this is your before. Look at that. Nothing wrong with it before. But for every shot that comes out of your camera, it could be better. And that's for all the people that say, I did it technically correct. I shot it on the right settings. I did it manually. I did it blah, 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 blah. I guarantee you, every shot you've taken that you did all the right things in the camera could look better. I guarantee it. There's no shot in the camera that ever comes out that couldn't be improved. All right, so that's it. That's the out of the camera, technically correct. Everything's in focus, the right, with the crop, the right composition. That's just juicing it, just making it look a little bit better. All right, next up. Let's go ahead and take a look at, so I'm going to go ahead and filter these because, I don't think I even did anything with any of these. Let's see. Yeah, see, those might be, they're okay. They're a little noisy, so I see this noise in the shot. And if I look at my ISO, it's only ISO 250, so why is there, just the noise? So what I might do on this particular shot is I might go into develop. And now that we have that wonderful denoise feature, I might run that and see what that does. Yeah, so just denoising that. Now again, I may not use this shot because it's not as sharp as it could be. Maybe I can make that change. But just denoising it, and maybe I don't need to denoise it as much. So that's no denoise. So I would bump up always move the slider to no more than you need. In other words, don't take it over to 100 just because you can. because then you're making other things less sharp that could have been sharper had you not taken it over that far. So I'm just basically starting at the beginning where it is noisy and moving my denoise slider until I don't see the noise anymore. And then I can stop. I don't need to go any further then, because that was the whole point of coming in here, was getting rid of the visible noise. Then once I click enhance, that will make over in the upper left corner, you can see it processing, that will make a brand new raw file, brand new DNG. Yes, AI denoise for the win. And we'll just let that cook a few more seconds. Looks like it's about to finish. Oh, it's probably writing the file, and if these files are on my NAS, it's going to take a little bit longer. All right, but then what I would do, I'll just let you know up front, and it just finished. It's almost finished. There we go, just finished. And let's see what it looks like. Yeah, here's the enhanced one, the noise reduction. So here's the original. And again, it looks fine zoomed out. That's the original, and that's the denoise version. So big visible difference in the sky. Now that I got my great denoise version, I'm going to zoom back out, go into the develop module, and same thing. I'm going to mask it, see if it masks the planes. Select subject. And it got the jet stream too, but that's okay. And now I can go in and I can do those same things we talked about. Or I could paint out the jet stream if I don't want. So here's the other thing. If the AI-based select subject doesn't get the subject the way you want it, doesn't mean you can't fix it. It can mean you can't change it. So let's say I just want the planes. I don't want the jet stream behind it. I don't want the smoke. All right, you don't want that smoke. Anyway, let's go in and let's subtract. And I'm just going to say subtract with a brush. Because then I can brush out and say, hey, don't select the smoke. Just select the planes. I make my brush smaller and get closer to the plane. There we go, something like that. You don't have to live with, oh, it didn't really select it the way I want it to. Oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it. There is something you can do about it. Add or subtract to the areas that you want. And I can go, I zoom in and get in between the wings and get in between the plane and make sure I got all the sky deselected. But anyway, enough of that. Let's go back to the plane. And now let's zoom in. See, that's what I mean. So I have to brush in between here to make sure I got that all out. But we're going to go ahead and say that, hey, we want to adjust our, and it stays red until you make your first adjustment. So what you're seeing is the mask. And that's good because it shows me if I got the mask right before I start trying to adjust. So now I can go ahead and I could bump up the texture of this. So that's low texture. That's higher texture. That looks a lot better. And I would probably go in and nope, no exposure, no exposure. Exposure's fine. The bad things were starting to happen when I went to exposure. And maybe the shadows. Yeah, okay. Bump up the shadows a little bit. A hair. Bring down the highlights a little bit. And increase that contrast a little bit. And then also, I bumped the texture. Let's see if sharpening. That's too much. Pull it back. And sharpen it. All right. Now, we still didn't make any of our normal adjustments. We didn't go into basic. We didn't choose. Oh, we did. This photo had already been adjusted. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that's why it looks so much better than the other one. Anyway, and so if that's the shot you want it, you're good. But you know, I probably want less sky. So we're going to go ahead and use our, not R, or not C, R. And we're going to go ahead then and do the same thing just because I don't care. It might as well be an aspect ratio that's good for print. I'm going to go ahead and pull that in just a bit and maybe right about there. Just give them enough room to fly and then move that over to right about there from a composition standpoint. And that's my new shot. So yeah, before, let's see how much duller it looks. So here, let me zoom in. Before, kind of dull, kind of washed out. After, just a little bit sharper. So, and again, that, you know, had I had a better shot, I'd have better results. So this one, it was as good as it was going to get. All right, so next, let's go ahead and, what was I about to do? I was going to come in here and I was going to filter on. I did my picks. That's good enough. All right, so here's another one. This is one of the ones I wanted to show you. That's the after. That's the before. So you're saying, oh my God, it's a silhouette almost. So again, I shot raw. I know the data's there. I know I can get the right shot out of this shot. As long as I got it in focus, as long as I got the stuff right in the camera, the rest is easier to fix. So again, if I'd have sat there playing with settings, I wouldn't have this shot. So this was shooting the same settings, get the shot, then come back to post and finish it. Not fix it, finish it. So let's go to develop. And same thing, we're going to switch over to probably Vivid, and we're going to switch to auto. Already looking better. And we're going to, now, just try to decide what I want to do next. I want to go in next and do a mask. And we're going to go ahead and select the subject again. That should be the planes, yep. And then we're going to invert that mask. So basically we have the planes, I want everything but the planes. So I'm just going to come over and hit invert mask 1. And then we're going to call this mask sky. All right, so now we got the sky selected. Now we can make the sky better because that's really what was wrong. So for example, I might go into the temperature and make the sky bluer. Ooh, look at that. Now, again, I would have to unmask the smoke if you don't want the smoke. Oh, I have to mask the smoke. I'd basically take the smoke out of the sky selection, and that way the smoke wouldn't be turning blue as well. But I don't mind the blue smoke. That's not bothering me. But if it did bother you, if you wanted the gray smoke, then just go out and paint the smoke out of the shot. And you might zoom in to do that just right. There we go. And of course, I haven't met a sky yet that couldn't use a little dehaze. So just look at that. Look at how much better we can make that sky. And again, I can see where it didn't select it right here. There's a piece missing, so I need to add that into the mask. And so now I may not even need the temperature to be as much. Let's do that. So, okay, so go back to that mask. And we're going to add to it. And we're going to add it with a brush. And we're going to just go ahead and see if I just paint that in, then I'm telling it that that part of the sky is also part of this. And I think this might need it too. And this definitely needs it up here. So basically just fixing the parts that I want. Now, like I said before, if you wanted to subtract, you can go to that mask and you hit subtract and also use a brush. And if you don't want the smoke, again, you'd have to, it's really tricky. You'd have to zoom in and do it or undo. I haven't tried this yet. Let's try it. Subtract using the object selection tool, because the object selection tool works either with a brush or with a rectangular selection. So if I just brush this, let's see if it's smart enough to figure out that I don't want the smoke. If it does this, this is worth its weight in gold right here. Let's see, undo or let go. Nah, it it doesn't smart enough. It's not smart enough to know the difference between smoke and clouds because they look the same. All right, so I will forgive you for that one. But you'd have to go in and basically just make sure you got, you'd have to paint really, you have to zoom it up and use a really small brush and paint each part of the smoke if you didn't want that smoke to be the blue or get the same effects. All right, so the sky's looking a lot better. Now we're not done yet. Let's go ahead and hit our mask one more time, and let's go ahead and create a new mask. This time we're going to select subject again. Now we have the planes, and we can go ahead and name that one planes. And now that we have the planes, we can go ahead and make sure that we do the things we want to do on the plane. So I want the planes a little bit more, no, not the exposure, maybe just the shadows. There we go. Shadows, not the rest of the exposure. And definitely we can use a couple things here. We can use that. There we go. Texture. And we can use a little, maybe even a little dehaze, even though that should only be doing it on the planes. Oh, you know why? Because I'm down below in that area. Never mind. That was me. That was my bad. I was down in the global area. Undo. I should be here. There we go. So in case you run into that mistake, I was looking for dehaze and I scrolled down too far. This is the adjustments for the whole image. These are the adjustments for the mask. I want the adjustments for the mask. So texture. So I would need to go back down and make sure I turn off the texture for the whole image, because I don't want it for the whole image. I just want it for the mask. All right. We did the shadows. Maybe bump the contrast a little bit more. I still think it could be a little brighter. All right, let's bump the whole exposure just a little bit and more like that. Okay, great. So before, after, with just a few adjustments, again, from our finished photo. Now, if we really want to see the before and after, let's get out. And this is even better than the first one I edited. Let's make another virtual copy. And let's reset that one. Reset. Or no, that one is the reset. I'm sorry. No, that's the reset. Okay. That's out of the camera. That's with a few adjustments. So that's how I got the shot. Like literally, that's how I got it. Made sure I started with a great image and then finish it. So this is the one you would see on a poster. This is the one you see on a brochure, not the one you got technically correct out of the camera, because you want it to look like this. All right. And again, adjust to your taste. If it's too much, too little, make it more, make it less, do your thing. All right, got a few minutes left in today's session. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Probably don't have time to run through a full explanation of another one, but let's just go through another one and kind of see the before. Yeah, these were tricky. So here, let me virtual copy it. And let's hit that reset on the virtual copy and see what that one looked like originally. All right, so that was the original. It's just too dark. So here's the one I edited. Here's the original. And so same kind of stuff. Vivid, auto-tone. Auto-tone just really did a better job. I can still go in and bump up the shadows a little bit more. Kind of bring out, look at that detail, because you shot raw. And we can add a little bit more contrast to it and go from there. So, was on 10, move the Behance, social, great. I'm just looking at the comments, make sure I didn't miss anything. How about the color range after you mask out the plane? Sure, you could use the color range on that as well. Just another way to do it. Great, tiny amount of stuff, cool. I love to see your pictures printed on panorama paper, me too. All right. Good. So if now's your chance to put stuff in the comments for what you want to see on the next episode of the Photography Morning Show. We could always do a live shoot. I could bring in a guest. We could do things that are more photography centric, because the masterclass is always going to stay, this stuff is always going to be dedicated to the Lightroom, Photoshop stuff in the world. And notice on almost, I would say on the vast majority of these, I did not need to go to Photoshop, because there was nothing that needed to be removed or added or done to the shot that I would normally do those kinds of things in Photoshop. So in other words, for 95% of all my edits from this air show, they were all done in Lightroom. Or Lightroom Classic. I didn't need to do anything else. All right, let me know in the comments what you want next time, and we'll try and fit that in. I'm glad you had a lot of fun, Tim Dalton, watching this. And glad Gary loves the format. And you're welcome. Stay tuned. I think you're going to see another show here on Behance in the next 5 minutes. I'm just trying to think for the next 30 seconds. Is there anything I need to say? No, that's it. All right. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. I'll put you back in the lobby. And feel free to follow me. There's a thing right there. Oh, it went away. It's gone. Feel free to follow me. I'm Terry Lee White at 99% of the places on the internet. Bye, everybody.